I want to thank John Dyer, the CEO and founder at Nova Title, our newest sponsor. They're 20 years in business with offices in Worcester and Solon to serve you. They can be found at novatitleagency.com. They're making the American dream come true with 3 attorneys, 6 licensed title agents, 2 e-notaries on staff, and you can close at any time. You're choosing. The American dream comes true at Nova Title. John Dyer and his staff will help you do so at novatitleagency.com. Blood Time, the podcast that speaks to the bond, the emotion between coach and athlete at the interscholastic and intercollegiate level. Each interview, each segment will reveal that bond and what was learned, how they were transformed, and what each athlete took to the world at large from that transformation. These stories will warm your heart and astound you altogether. Submitted for your approval. Now it is Blood Time. We are back from the quarantine. Holy cow, this has been a long 2 months for Blood Time and the Blood Time crew, but welcome back, and I want to thank my last guest, Kesh Sagafi, the mortgage guy and also the most tenacious guy I've ever heard about in the sport of wrestling, going from literally just a very average wrestler to actually winning almost 50 matches in college, or maybe over 50 matches in college at Oklahoma State, and wrestling with John Smith on a continual basis. An amazing story, an amazing businessman, and amazing guest. Thank you, Kesh. And I also love his brother Dar, who I coached at John Carroll University, a great physician in his own right. I have in studio today a great guy, one of my most favorite guys in the sport forever. Not only a coach at a number of schools, but also currently the superintendent at the Cuyahoga Heights school system, including K through 12. Tom Evans. Welcome, Tom. How are you?
My pleasure, Pete. Good seeing you.
Thank you so much for being here after the quarantine, sort of.
Yeah, great. It's a beautiful day, too. I think we had the right day for it.
So, obviously Blood Time, right? We're here for Blood Time, the sport, the coach, but we have a big issue here, big issue that could affect our sport. But we don't know what that's gonna be. It's a fluid situation. A lot of emotion initially in the lockdown. We're seeing some things from Sweden. We're seeing some better models moving forward, and the sadness that we experienced with the cancellation of the state tournament in our sport, in basketball, girls and boys, in the cancellation of track and baseball. It's heart-wrenching. You're right there on the front line. Tell me what's going on over there at Cuyahoga Heights.
Well, heart-wrenching was the right word. And the irony is I was thinking about the state wrestling tournament today. In a normal year, we would have been done.
Yeah.
The season got pushed back a week this year, as all the seasons did.
Right.
And we might have been through it at that point in time, at least gotten the season in. But
yeah, because we did the districts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just tough on the kids. Tough to watch all the heart that they put into things, and they have it, certainly the state championships taken away from kids that have qualified for that. That's a heartbreaker. But then kids that are spring sport athletes, baseball, softball, our track kids, we were going to have a gangbuster of a track team this year, and the work that those kids have put into it. And really up until the final nail kind of came, that we're still trying to do some things to get ready in case they came back. So, but I got to, from the time this whole thing started, when I met with our staff, and we're blessed. Most of our coaches are in our district, so
cool.
They know our kids. They know who we are. They know what our mission is. I took a look at this, and I said to this across the board that we're going to look at this as an opportunity.
Okay.
And our district's faced a lot of adversity in the last 10, 15 years. Some self-inflicted, but every time that's happened, our district has been better for it. Our people have risen to the occasion. They've done a phenomenal job, and that's been the case this time. I got coaches. My track coach puts a daily blog out there, a workout schedule. The kids are recording stuff and they're filling in. So we're trying to stay as positive as we can about
Sure.
What's a really, really negative situation.
Yeah, well, today, I put out my final forms memo. It's been a couple weeks because of my move. I just moved into a new home. Thank you, Missy, my girlfriend. She's fantastic. But having said that, I put out a memo because my assistant coach, Jay Goodwin, has decided to move back to Dallas for a career move, which is great for him. And so part of that was the message of staying positive, staying engaged, keeping your mind right, keeping your spirits up, keeping your workout right. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? So I know what you're talking about. It's really important, but the entire situation here is fluid. I use that term fluid. And also, too, failing forward. We like to use that term in this podcast. And so I think you just mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
It's a mentality of
Right.
if we fail, but we're going to fail forward. We're
Right.
not going to do that again. We're going to get better, stronger, faster, smarter. But it's also fluid. So we have to look at different things to make our decisions. And so what I'm looking at in this decision for both athletics, but also education, business, politics, whatever, we need to not only rely on the scientists for these decisions, we need to rely on the person who has logic, common sense, from different professions to make a joint decision that is smart for really the society at large. And I think that's also going to transfer into our sport, into sports. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're 100%. You're 100% right,
Yeah.
and part of that is right now, as you well know, you see there's confusion on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
even from our leadership, and I meet with any given week anywhere between 60 and 80 superintendents via virtual meetings, and some are really focused on some short-term things. Others are talking about what are we going to do in the fall. And I think we kind of narrow that focus a little bit. It's good to take a look at all those different perspectives. And really those weekly meetings are very cathartic for me as a superintendent to hear what other people are experiencing and what they're looking at, because a lot of times they might have an alternative way of doing some things. And I think that it's been an area that has allowed for some growth for us, but really to try and stay hyper-focused on one step at a time as we move through this. Because
So eat that elephant one slice at a time.
Exactly.
You got that elephant in the room, but you can't eat it all at one time.
We're 8 weeks into this, and we're already making decisions are being made another 8 weeks out.
Okay.
And I think the state of Ohio has made tremendous progress in 8 weeks.
I agree.
And if we make that same kind of progress in another 8 weeks, I think it's looking at a whole different way of looking at things.
Well, and I was just reading about the Sweden model.
Yeah.
We talked about this offline before we started the interview. And really that's so smart to me, because put to work the people that are not at risk to help the ones that are at risk and help society continue. And so when I look at some of these numbers that we're seeing, it doesn't really bear out the total lockdown of what's occurred. Now, again, I'm not an expert. You're an expert in one field, but the common sense look at it looks to me like we really got to take a step back. And I think you said this before we started this, take a deep breath and make the right, not emotional decision, but make the right intellectual decision for the society at large. Am I missing?
100%, 100%. And again, I like the one bite at a time on the elephant thing.
Right.
I think sometimes you become overwhelmed when you start taking a look at the big picture.
Sure.
Certainly, we've been able to do it in the state of Ohio because Governor DeWine's been kind of out front of some of these things. But, we talk about that Sweden model. Seems to be a lot of really good data coming out of there. Some effective strategies. And we talked about, before we came on here, the percentage that are incarcerated.
Yes. That are
skewing
the numbers.
On those numbers. So that would almost seem like a natural. They're in a confined space. So it's the whole numbers can lie to you sometimes,
right?
Depending on how you use them, how you want to use them.
Sure.
And you got to be careful of that moving through this. I think you have to look at the reality right in front of you.
Yeah.
We've looked at Cuyahoga County very closely. We've looked at our, if you look at the breakdown at our zip code.
Okay.
Quite honestly, and we're a little bit less affected over at Cuyahoga Heights than maybe some of the other ones are.
Sure.
And we just had a meeting with my administrative team last week, and and we're sitting there, and nobody of my immediate administrative team knew anybody within the district that had contracted COVID. Yeah. That's a wonderful thing, but that doesn't mean it's not happening around us. But we want to stay that course. So
of course.
We're saying to ourselves, then we think we've done some things right to this point.
Yep.
And let's continue to do things, and let's continue to step by step move forward, not stand still. I think some people are caught in a little bit of a quicksand right now, and they're afraid to take that step forward. And that's a legitimate fear, but at some point in time, and you watch the news, you see the tension in society right now. You got to start moving forward a little bit.
Well, it's the old term paralysis by analysis, right?
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, speaking of what you were speaking about, the two things that I would address is that I'm good friends with Ted Yates, who's the mayor of Twinsburg, former wrestler from Solon. We love the wrestling. Right? And he was putting the numbers out, and Summit County's low.
Yeah.
I mean, low. The entire county, and Twinsburg obviously is in there. But also, too, I do have an acquaintance, and I would consider him a friend, and his brother a friend of mine, Michael Aletta, from the Aletta family. Tony Aletta was a national runner-up for John Carroll University. And he's doing well now, or not well, but he's getting healthier. But he was really hit by this. So my best wishes going out to the Aletta family for a complete recovery for Michael, who's owner of Gino's Jewelers as well.
One of those things is just about even breaking it down into smaller sections that, the governor's made some, and Dr. Acton has certainly put some things in place. Yeah. And the Ohio Department of Education has kind of made some recommendations to us. They've really let local control kind of dictate, which was a good thing, because you go out to an area like Hancock County that I think last check that I saw, Hancock County had maybe 1 or 2 documented cases in the entire county.
Right.
So are you going to let them treat things a little bit differently out there, or do you say, no, we got to stay clamped down until we're sure of this?
And our leaders have been saying, hey, Wyoming is different than New York City.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's what we're talking about, right? Obviously, Hancock County is definitely different than Calgary County.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I agree with you 100%. So let's narrow this down. Let's talk about our sport.
Okay.
I love our sport.
But
it is the anti-social distancing. You can't get more anti-social distancing than knocking heads in the wrestling room. So what do we do with our sport? What does that look like in October when preseason starts, in November when real season starts?
Well, it's funny. I pulled up a Yahoo article, and they said the 10 things that you're not going to see coming back in the fall. And one of them, glumped together, was the sport of football, wrestling, and rugby, of which I'm associated all 3.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, we've dealt with it for a long time.
Sure.
The whole sanitation thing, and we've gone through the whole skin.
Oh my gosh, the skin things. God bless Defense Soap, right?
Honestly,
we just had the boys on.
So we've never been a reactive sport about it.
Right.
So, and I got to believe that that's going to stay the same. I think the problem comes when other people that aren't part of it believe they know better than what we do.
Well said.
I think sometimes,
this is what I was talking about, right?
Right.
Not just the scientists, but others that are surrounding, they actually have experience in the sport. May not be scientists, but literally live the sport.
Yeah.
Eat, sweet, and eat,
absolutely.
Eat, sleep, and drink it.
And the people in our level of sport, the coaches and the administrators, they want nothing but the best for our sport.
Of course.
And the last thing we want is a black eye associated with our sport, that we've done something.
Although once or twice we've seen some experience.
We have.
You give them a cockeye what are you talking about?
But I don't think there's a sport that's without that, though. So
I agree.
I don't think we're alone.
That 2 guys coming out of the Nordonia district in 1974, that was a bad decision.
We didn't be mad at the state for that,
though. Anyhow, go ahead.
I think our sport's always been willing to work with people to say what's best for us. And I remember, and as you well do, the whole weight management thing, and we remember what weight cutting was in the 70s and 80s. Where people were putting plastic suits on and that kind of thing, and it was just not good for you. And the progress that we made and the research that was done, and now with the testing and that type of thing, and the way that it's gone about right now, it's far more healthier for the kids. And I think our sport has always been open-minded to that.
Yeah.
Because again, in the long run, that's what's best for our sport.
Of course.
And you and I have both seen a lot of different models with that. We've seen skin handled a lot of different ways through the course of our years. And while this is, this can be far more devastating.
Of course.
Although generally not to that age group, they tend to be more carriers than they have been kids that have been experienced by
Right.
it. But
More our
you
age
and I
group.
are the ones that are more threatened by
Exactly
being in the
right.
wrestling room with it, quite
Exactly
honestly.
right, yeah.
But
Although I think we've seen.
well,
I mean,
yeah.
we've had every disease thrown at us, man. As long as you're in that.
It bounces
Yeah,
off anyway,
exactly
at a
right.
certain level. But
Yeah.
but I think we look at overall health and general strength of body and mind, and I think those are all advantages in dealing with this.
And that leads me to my next point: herd immunity.
Yeah,
This is our best defense.
right.
Is going out and getting dirty.
Yeah,
Stop being in the house where you're becoming, like basically a mushroom.
Yep.
Right? Get out in the real world, get dirty, rub some dirt on it, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And get that herd immunity. So I think that our sport speaks to that. I'm just biased,
no,
but it does.
I was talking to a good friend, Ray Anthony, a longtime wrestling official, and
the greatest,
Ray's one of my great friends in the world,
Awesome.
and we were talking about as kids, heck, we ate mud pies and then came in and
Of course.
and
Yeah.
maybe half washed our hands and then ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it's like we were eating dirt and everything else, and Ray says to me, we turned out all right. There are people that might
Sure.
second guess whether we turned out all right or not, but
That's right. That's right.
I think we did.
Hey, listen, Columbia Station loves Ray Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Cuyahoga Heights loves Tom Evans.
Yeah.
So it's a good stuff. But, so we have conjecture.
Yeah.
We don't know, okay, what's going to happen to our sport. But let's turn this around a little bit and let's talk about Blood Time. Let's talk about Tom Evans and Blood Time. And what coach made you think that maybe I can do this? Maybe I can coach. Maybe I can teach. Maybe I can be an administrator. Maybe I could be something more than just what I was doing when I was doing it.
Well, I've been blessed. I raised by two wonderful parents who neither one are with us anymore, but just but then had so many terrific mentors in my life. When I first started, and I got two older brothers and two younger sisters.
Nice.
But we all kind of mixed it up sport-wise. My oldest brother, Bud, was a very good wrestler. As a matter of fact, his nemesis was Stevie Kale from
my
Beechwood.
God.
He couldn't
Oh,
get
my
past
God.
Stevie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Bud had a great career.
Stevie was the ultimate staller.
Uh,
Oh my God, that boy! And he was hard to take
Yeah,
down, man. You couldn't take him down. Well, he took fourth in the state
Yeah,
twice. So
yeah.
he was pretty good.
And my brother Mark played football and was a track guy, and then I did football, wrestling, and track. So we kind of spread it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was one of these the emphases with wrestling camps.
Sure,
That Coach Jim Wallace was the head coach
sure.
at Cuyahoga Heights, and he's Hall of Famer, and
Yep.
we lost Jim about a year or so ago. But
Wow.
a great guy, great man, and actually a neighbor.
Sure.
Jim Wallace lived a street away from us, and John, his son, was captain when I was a sophomore of the wrestling team, so I've known John his whole life. But we were just a close-knit group. But we, wrestling camps back then, and the first one I went to was out in Huron, but then Dick Bonacci, Cleveland State.
Oh, one of the best of all time.
Cleveland State, and I
Yeah.
developed a relationship with Mike Paporis
Yep.
when Mike was at Richmond Heights.
One of
as
our
a
biggest,
camp,
our number one nemesis. So,
our
yeah.
camp counselor, Tommy Eller,
Love him.
longtime friend,
God, yeah.
referee. So all those people, and then just to, that was back in a time when, as a high school, the rules were a little bit less lax. So like over Christmas vacation, we practiced at 10 o'clock in the morning at Cuyahoga Heights, and then we get done at noon, and then I hop in the car and drive down to Cleveland State and get my brains beat in by Albert and Tony DiGiovanni, Gary Ceresi, that whole crew.
Sure.
Just great people, developed great relationships with them. Dick
Yep.
was, as much, I didn't end up at Cleveland State, but Dick was always kind of looking out for me, and
Nice.
I would have loved to have me down there, but just another one of those people that you can kind of go to.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, I graduated from college. I played some rugby in college.
All right.
And
They eat their young, right?
yeah, we do, absolutely. But moved back to the greater Cleveland area, and my first phone call I get is from my old coach,
Sure.
Bill Jacobs.
Okay.
Lived in Berea. I was working out that way. A great mentor to me. He said, "Do you want to coach football?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Show up at Berea tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock." And I was coaching the next morning at 10 o'clock for Tom Madzey.
Oh my gosh.
So Tom Madzey was a great, and Tom, a lot of people used to talk about family first.
Yeah.
We lived it.
Yep.
We absolutely lived it. We had a coaching staff of 10. I still remember my first year there, we had 230 kids, 9 through 12, in football uniforms in our team picture.
Oh my God.
But it was
That's more than Beechwood's entire population.
and it was about family,
Yeah,
and it was just about
My senior class was 202.
Yeah.
So,
I learned so much from Tom Madzi, Harl
Sure.
Evans, and that crew, and they taught me about life and about how that relates to coaching.
Yeah.
And it really did help to formulate, what I learned from Jim Wallace and then Tom Madzi and Bill Jacobs, those three people, about people and relationships and hard work and that type of thing.
Was there anything, Tom, that they said either positively or got in your grill a little bit that just turned you? Like, I remember a few choice moments by, Coach I. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And I remember not to direct it towards me, but DeCarlo directed towards a few guys. Number one, John Gramugli. God love him. He's great. But you know what I mean? And they just turned the way I thought.
But they were tough love people.
Sure, yeah.
They were tough love people. They weren't huggers. They weren't everything's all right all the time.
No, it's not.
They were, sometimes it's a kick in the pants.
Yeah.
And to get better. What I learned from the three of those guys is that I never walked into a room and thought I'm the most talented or I'm the smartest guy in the room.
Gotcha.
I always felt that if you're going to beat me, you're going to outwork me. And I learned that from all three of those people. Mm-hmm. They were grinders. If there's no replacement for hard work and dedication in what you do.
Cool.
And that will, and I think that was portrayed in even the teams that I coached. One of the greatest compliments, I was thinking about this on the way over. We were talking about some of the Walsh teams, and Bill Barger. We're over to Alliance. The Top Gun tournament in Alliance is over there. And I'm standing next to Bill Barger, and Bill says, Tommy, I love wrestling your kids. I go, why, Bill? You beat the snot out of us all the time. He goes, your kids love a fight. He goes, your kids never back down. He goes, some of my kids have been wrestling since, the North Akron Wrestling Club. He goes, your kids walked out on the mat last week, but they're not walking off without giving you everything they got. And that
scrappers.
That was the eternal compliment for me, that we'll take you and we're gonna be tough minded.
Yep.
And we're gonna maximize what we can do.
It's not the dog in the fight; it's the fight.
That was one of Coach Wallace's. Coach Wallace had two. It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of fighting the dog. And he always used to tell us a hungry dog fights better than a fat dog.
That's right. But I like the line. Never trust a skinny chef.
Yeah.
So fat is good sometimes.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking about eating. I don't know why.
There we go. Right down the tubes there.
Right?
Yep.
It's beautiful. So, so that's beautiful. And, I had a number of great coaches as well. What did you, and in the very first blood time that I had Sonny Marchetti on and Mark Haywald. Yeah. And they talked about their DNA. And Marchetti talked about Barger and Talarchuk being part of his DNA. Yeah. He doesn't even think about those guys. Yep. They are in him.
Yep.
Same thing with DiGiovanni and Haywald. Same thing with, obviously his father.
Absolutely.
Mark Sr., I guess, is, for lack of a better term. How do you have a better coach, right, than Mark, a three-time NCAA champion? But anyhow, that was part of his DNA. Is that what you feel as a coach, as an administrator, as a teacher?
Oh, absolutely. And there's it to the point where sometimes it becomes a little bit funny because I'll say something and I'll realize that's something Tom Madzi would have said, or I'll do something. And another one of my mentors in education was Linda Bowers. She's the reason I became an administrator. And I'm going to digress for a second to go off on this, but I taught in a vocational school. I taught horticulture for a long time.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I tell people I'm one of the only educators in Cuyahoga County that my degree is in agriculture.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
But Linda Bowers pulled me in her office one day. I was working at Medina Career Center. I was teaching horticulture down there. And she goes, you're going to be an administrator next year. I go, Linda, I don't have my master's degree yet. Yeah. She goes, I need another administrator. It's going to be you. Wow. I said, well, I haven't taken any classes. She picked up the phone, called Ashland University, signed me up for a class with her credit card.
Okay.
And said, now you can get your administrative license.
That is fantastic.
And just to have people in your life that believe in you that much to say,
that is,
and again,
that's rare, Tom.
That's just another way of getting a kick in the pants, and that was Linda's way of giving me a kick in the pants. But she saw some things in me, and it's just funny. And the DNA is spot on,
right? Because
rarely a day goes by that, and even not even when you're just making hard decisions, just your daily way about going about things,
sure,
it comes from those different people,
right?
And I got a great mix, between my parents and then the coaching mentors and the teaching mentors I had. That's a Hall of Fame lineup right there. And if I just carry a little bit of each of them with me, I'm in a pretty doggone good place.
Fantastic. Liberty Home Mortgage Corporation for all your home mortgage needs. Reach out to them at libertyhomemortgage.org or call them at 440-665-7627. That's Liberty Home Mortgage. So Tom, you're an administrator. God bless Linda, right? But you're also a wrestler.
Yep.
Okay, so we are facing the brave new world.
Yep.
Moving forward. So how are you going to affect your school system? And I know that you said you meet with 100 superintendents on a Zoom meeting on a weekly, so you're going to have a voice there. How are you going to address not only your school system but our sport at large in this new world?
Well, in the sport thing, and it may sound a little bit crazy, I think that the pro sports are going to be kind of our lead on that.
Okay.
So the quicker pro sports gets back, the more people become relaxed with sports in general.
Yeah.
I think, and getting, we've heard every different model out there, taking baseball out to Arizona, not having crowds, and I had this discussion with somebody the other day, and we can talk about those things all you want, but if Ohio State was playing Michigan tomorrow in football, there'd be 110,000 people in that stadium without masks on.
Absolutely.
So is that reckless? Maybe
50,000 drunk as hell.
Right. Well,
maybe
so
more.
they're impervious. So, but
exactly. Right.
But is that a great thing? Well, maybe not. But I just think that getting sports back up and running is going to be a key. First of all, and saying, okay, listen, basketball did it. Baseball season finished up. Everything was fine. Nothing spiked. And that's going to kind of lead the way for us. So we're going to follow that lead a little bit. So that will help us. And certainly what I'm hearing the last 2 days from some of all the pro sport leagues is very encouraging. The NFL's coming out with their schedule, starting on the date they were supposed to start with in September, anticipating stadiums being open. Sure. So that's our approach as a school, too. Okay. I know some schools have pushed starting dates back to give themselves some more time.
Okay.
We're not. Okay. We're sticking with our date and saying one step at a time with this. We're 8 weeks into this. We've showed tremendous progress. Another 8 weeks, we believe there's going to be some more progress. Okay. With the one caveat, knowing that there's still scared families out there.
Sure.
And we have to deal with them.
And at-risk people.
Right. Exactly.
With comorbidity,
lots of kids have grandparents in the house. Of course. And while our
cancer survivors. Right. My sister is a cancer survivor.
Our school-age children aren't necessarily that, they're carriers, and you have to be careful. And when I didn't really realize that till I talked to one of my superintendent's meetings. Yeah. When this whole thing broke in March, he said, Tom, he goes, we got to close right now because, 50% of my students' grandparents live in their homes with them.
Big point. No question about
something
that.
I hadn't thought about. And we have some in our district, but the demographics of all the districts, they all a little bit different. So it's good to have that perspective from another point of view. But I read someplace that hope is not a strategy.
Right. Hope's a beggar.
Yeah.
Hope's a beggar. Let's have faith in our.
So we're planning. We're going to put together our regular plan to start school the way we would start school, and obviously up in all of our sanitation things, and making masks available and that type of thing as we finish.
Would you like
up
to
the
have
school
Gojo stock?
Right
or Zoom stock? Holy cow! Right?
Yeah, going through the roof.
Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah.
But then, just thinking if we're not the all clear, where do we go? And quite honestly, we're a small district, 850 students,
right.
Pre-K to 12.
Right.
We don't have the ability to go on a split schedule. So our first thought is to start with the online schooling in the beginning there, if we're forced to.
Okay.
If we're forced to.
Which is so difficult.
It is.
So, I mean, I watched my girlfriend, she's trying to teach 24 second graders virtually. It's just brutal.
It's like trying to herd kittens.
Well, not that, but she's got to become a technologist overnight, and it's just like, and there's, the other thing too is I was reading, and I was talking to my daughter who's, my baby just graduated from Ohio State.
Oh,
go Bucks!
There we go.
Yeah, May 3rd. She's a Buckeye, 3 for 3. But she was talking about these Zoom meetings, and Zoom meetings actually bring more anxiety because you're watching yourself talk in a business meeting or in a, and you're not used to that. You're used to doing what we're doing right now. And so some people like that. Maybe I do. But I mean, most people are like self-conscious. Like, this is freaking me out a little bit. You know what I mean? So. Having said that, hopefully not, but please continue your thought process.
And I've said right from the get-go, I've got some of the best teachers in the state of Ohio.
Sure.
Our results speak for themselves academically.
Doubt. Great system.
And when we made the change to the online, our teachers didn't miss a beat.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, with the chains of state mandated testing coming off, some of our teachers got super creative and started doing some really, really neat things.
Awesome.
There's a shelf life to that.
Of course.
There's absolutely a shelf life to that.
You have to be in front of the person.
There is no replacement for my teacher delivering a lesson and seeing that question mark in that kid's eye.
Of course.
And then asking more questions or walking behind them as they're working on some work. Body language. There's certainly the online can get you to a certain point, but it is not as good as my teachers, and never will be.
Right.
That we, or Beechwood's teachers or Mayfield's teachers. Sure. It's no replacement for it. It really isn't. And you know what? There's some anxiety amongst the teachers. We miss our kids.
Sure.
We miss our kids, and I've been the only one in the building every day since this has broken.
Wow.
I'm in the building every day. I keep everybody else safe. I've had some maintenance people, and I allow teachers to come in if they want to do some work from their classrooms to get ready, but not overdo it. And I've said this from the time that I had been an educator. I hate being in the building when there's no kids in the building.
Yeah.
I draw my energy from the kids.
Almost like a science fiction movie.
It really, it's really creepy. And I tell people this every year. My office sits, I can see the football field from my office because I'm in the high school building.
Yep.
But in August, when the drum line's out there and they start practicing, I feel the hair on the back of my neck start to stand up because the kids are back.
Yeah.
The kids are back in the building,
right.
and life's where it's supposed to be.
That's what it's all about, right?
And that's what I long for. That's what I can't wait for, those kids to be back in the safe.
Okay.
Safe, because we're dealing with COVID right now, and there's been school shootings, and that has certainly scared the school community. I've stood in front of our kids and I've told our parents that I know that I can't teach your child until they feel safe.
Awesome.
So whatever we have to do to make them feel safe, to put them in a comfort zone, we're going to do that. We have the ability to do to make that happen. Knowing that with some parents, they're not going to feel safe until there's a vaccine out there. I have no control over that.
Of course.
But at some point in time, we got to get back to doing what we do.
And I completely understand that, and completely am empathetic with a situation where you have an 83-year-old grandmother at home with heart problems. Yep. You don't want to send your kid to bring it. Yeah, I get it. Totally get that. So, having said all that, so really, the answer is we'll see, but we're going to have really good procedures in place.
Right, we're planning on it, and I think it's a step-by-step approach to say what are the little things that we can tighten up, that we can shore up to cut this off. And sometimes I feel like they've oversimplified this with the washing hands and all that kind of stuff, but really that's to get back to that mentality of always doing that. That's a solid foundation for us. And I think you can then start to build off of some of those things, some things that as we work our way through them, they're going to seem like they're very common sense things. Like, why weren't we doing this before?
Right. Exactly.
That's because we didn't need to.
Yeah. It's a wake-up call. For the people that say it's going to change education dramatically forever, I don't believe that. I think that good teaching is good teaching. Yeah. Well, and you look at the Spanish flu.
Right.
Okay. So 1918, brutal. 1919, we came out of it. What happened in the 20s? The Roaring 20s. And there was bathtub gin parties. So you don't get, the opposite of what happened in 1918, you know, which was also really sad because the GIs were the biggest infectors of our society, and they were coming back, should have been heroes. They were actually angels of death. So we had that model, and that was 675,000 Americans died in a population that was only 1.5, about half of what we have now. So the percentage was even more horrifying, and they were killing everybody. It was killing everybody. So we have a great plan in place as much as we can have. But what I hear you is it's a great plan because it is a system that is paying attention to the current situation, but also being proactive, similar to our sport.
Absolutely, we have to be.
Okay.
And certain, there's that reactive part of it. But we have to look forward. I know Jerry Snodgrass at OHSAA just taking some really unwarranted shots from people. Sure. Nobody. I know Jerry on a personal level. Nobody cares more about our kids in our sports than Jerry does.
Sure.
And so that's been a little bit unfair. But I also know that that they're in contact with the Ohio Department of Education. They're in contact with the governor's office. They want to be right. They want to be ready so that when these things start to break out, and I'm going to tell you, the governor's office has held this real close to the bone, because I've been in some meetings on a state level that I'm very confident that the Ohio Department of Education is finding out the same time we are about some of the governor's decisions.
That's awesome.
He's keeping it that tight, close to the vest.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
And so what I've seen so far has made sense. Let's continue to make sense. Let's not continue to lose our minds with it, but let's continue to make progress. I think on a daily basis we have some of the most brilliant people in the world that live within our boundaries. I got to believe that at some point in time we're gonna find some ways, we're gonna find some fixes to this, and then be able to move forward with it.
And I agree with you, and I'm hearing more and more. So the intellect is really, I think it's stunning. I mean, and the internet also both positively and negatively affect that. Having said that, what do you think about our sport?
It's been fun watching our sport.
Sure.
Two major things, and I got involved with the first girls state wrestling tournament this year. I went down and worked the table. I volunteered.
That's cool.
I said, 20 years ago when I was coaching, when Division I programs were dropping
like flies,
I said, girls wrestling will help to save our sport.
Yes.
And I remember, man, some of the old diehards said, "No, girls can't wrestle. They can't wrestle." Well, I'm gonna tell you, I went down this. I was at Hilliard. They can wrestle.
Sure.
They did a great job. They're tremendous sportsmen.
Awesome.
I just think so proud of what I've seen on that level and the growth in the state of Ohio and what people up here in Northeast Ohio are doing. I know Mentor had some. Dave Ressler over at Lutheran Wesleyan has done a great job.
Yep.
Eric Burnett over at Elyria had some of Tiffin's girls out last year for the Lorain County All-Star Meet.
Nice.
So I think that's a good thing. The other thing I've thought long and hard about is I look at the coaching ranks.
Sure.
And, the coaching ranks when I was a young coach were guys that came out of our local college programs.
Of course.
Di Giovanni and Ralph Graham came out of Cleveland State's program.
Sure.
Albert, Tony, and Ralph Graham, and with the loss of some of those programs, so whereas wrestling got stronger in the state of Ohio, but Columbus, because Ohio State wrestling has gotten stronger.
Sure, no question.
So we're seeing more of those people kind of work into the high schools. I think we really need to do the most we can to encourage the Notre Dames, the John Carrolls, the Baldwin Wallaces, because those are our future coaches.
And Hiram now. I'm going to have
Hiram bring back tremendous.
I'm going to have Hiram's coach on.
Super excited.
Andrew Vogel, I believe his name. Yeah.
I see he's got some local ties there. Just super excited to see that come back. Would love to see something back at Tri-C.
Sure.
At one time, Gary Ceresi and that crew was over at Tri-C. Joe
Drago. Man, he had some
national powers. And Tri-C is a legitimate first step for a lot of our kids coming out of high school that aren't sure. And I would love to see something back there again. But I think that development on that college level is important to us.
I agree.
In Northeast Ohio, that we got to get back to making sure those are strong programs. And I see Baldwin Wallace making some huge strides. John Carroll's never lost a step in at Mount Union. Our OAC schools have been
Josh
great.
Malave, Mark Haywald,
doing great jobs.
Yeah.
Case has done a nice job. Danny works his tail off over there. Yeah. I love getting my emails from him every month on what they're doing.
And of course, Marchetti at Notre Dame.
So we have to continue down that road, because those are our future coaches, and that's a future of our sport.
I agree with you. So what are we doing now with COVID with our sport? What do you think how that's going to affect the 2021 season? And how can we make sure that it doesn't?
Well, I just think it's an emphasis on the sanitation things that we do, that we've always done, and maybe it's telling people what we do instead of, Defense Soap.
Right.
You and I know about Defense Soap.
Yeah.
But beyond the wrestling community, I don't know if people know what they've done.
They're actually doing really well. They're actually doing really well outside.
I've seen some of this stuff starting to pop up, but I think it's important to let people know that we are being proactive about this. Awesome. We're not waiting to react. We're sanitizing mats on a regular basis. I remember back in the late '90s, we were. I had a mister that we mist the locker room down once a week. I tell the kids, take everything home night. We're misting everything off in the locker room just to help us sanitation wise.
Yeah.
But to let people know that we're doing that so it is safe. Again, we have to make them believe that we're doing what it takes to be safe in our sport.
Right. And so maybe it's also a different type of fluid mentality about keeping a kid off the mat too, if he's sick.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And those are the tough calls for coaches.
They are.
When my first year as the head wrestling coach, I had over 60 kids in the wrestling room.
Wow.
I was blessed. Took over a program that really had not been very successful on the mat, but had good numbers, and
Sure.
we had some immediate success because of those numbers. And I think sometimes coaches feel the pressure now to say, God, I gotta fill a dual meet. I gotta fill a squad. He looks okay. Maybe I can walk him out there. Nah, sit him down.
Yep.
So it's the end of the. And if this has taught us nothing, it needs to have taught us that it's a long season, and we knew the grind of wrestling. As wrestlers, we knew the grind.
Listen, we had to make a tough decision this year. My 170 pounder, who ended up wrestling 82 at sectional, had mono. And his father is an assistant coach at Chagrin Falls as a football coach. So he's a jock. He wrestled for Kenston. And it was really a joint decision. So it was Jake, my assistant coach, myself, the wrestler Owen McClintock, and his father Ken, and of course his mother Kelly as well. She's a dentist. And we all made the decision he's going to wrestle. And they felt very comfortable with it. He lost 7-6 at 82. He was up, weight because he couldn't cut weight. He was out 6 weeks. And he couldn't wrestle anymore. Right. He just let it out there. But that kid ended up making second at sectional and made the district. So he was right there.
Right.
And I remember talking to the father a couple times. I had no problem with you making that decision, but that's a tough decision. Well, now guess what? That's going to be the decision. That's going to be the model, I think, moving forward.
It absolutely has to be and you have to involve all those parties in it too.
Yeah.
And
particularly like maybe there's a grandmother living at home at the McClintocks. What do we do in sending them home with a potential? And
you need to start it early on. We know a lot of our stuff takes place on the weekends. You better start on a Monday and Tuesday saying, we're going to need to make a decision pretty quick about whether it's a go or no go. That way everybody's fine with it by the time we get to Friday night. We're not sitting in the locker room at weigh-ins and seeing what the other team's got at 160 to say whether or not I'm going to weigh my kid in and walk him out there on the mat or not. We got to get away from that mentality and make sure that we're doing what's best for the kids, because that in the long run, that'll be what's best for our sport.
I agree with you 100%, and our sport has to get to that point.
Right.
And it has to do whatever it takes, in my estimation. So what can we do? Politically, business-wise, mentally, what can we do to reach out to the powers that be to say, don't destroy the season?
Well, I think, again, it comes from internally, and I think one of the best things that I saw take place was when you brought wrestlers and business over to Cuyahoga Heights last year, and they did that one-day program. We need more of that. We need education for our coaches to say, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, this is the why.
Okay.
Because then administrators aren't second-guessing you.
Right.
It's different in my position because people know that I'm born and bred a wrestler.
Sure.
So when wrestling decisions are being made at Cuyahoga Heights, they know that I got my fingers in it.
Yep.
We're that small.
Yep.
At Mayfield, Keith Kelly's a great guy.
Sure.
Superintendent. I don't know that Keith knows anything about wrestling. I don't know he knows about decisions that are being made down there.
Yeah, there's still superintendents that call us players.
Yeah. So, you better have strong ties to your athletic directors. And again, it's what we've learned a long time ago in business about relationships.
Yeah, no doubt.
And if my AD trusts my coach that he's being honest with him and he's doing the right thing, then we're in a good place.
Well said.
We say it time and time again, and I know other schools aren't as blessed as we are. So many of our coaches are teachers.
Yes.
They first and foremost know what our mission is.
Yeah.
And that translates to what we do athletically and academically. Our mission just isn't one fold. It's in the arts. It's in the academics. It's the whole person.
It's
the entire thing.
Yeah.
And so, much like Beachwood, we share athletes.
Sure.
It's Tuesday night. Tuesday night. There's track practice. Guess what? The concert's at 7:00 tonight, and half your track team's singing in the concert tonight. Guess where they're going.
I've got band guys all the time.
It's that working together and knowing what's best for the whole student.
Right.
And we got to get away from it's all about me and my sport.
I agree.
It's got to be about the big picture.
I agree.
And that's a hard thing to do. Sometimes if you don't have an educational background, and I've seen it in a lot of sports, especially sports that have some CYO ties and that type of thing, the JO, where it's all about that sport.
Right.
And there's no crossover into what's going on in the building. And that's where you hurt. Because wrestling, all sports can be used to strengthen your building. They feed off of each other.
No question.
I long time had discussions on the state level with people that said, hey, when your football team's 10-0, it's a lot easier being on the ballot in November.
No doubt.
Because there's a lot of positive vibes. Not that passes a levy for you, but there's a lot of positive vibes.
Sure. When
you're putting 170 kids in the band at halftime. There's a lot of positive vibes about your music program.
Yep.
going on at that point in time. Those are positive things for your school district. And it's not just your math scores or your ACT scores.
Right.
It's about all the rest of those things too.
It's camaraderie.
Absolutely.
It's family.
Absolutely.
You know, and I want to graduate great humans. Great wrestling is easy.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Great wrestling is easy. But so, Tom, you've really given us a great platform and a great perspective from an administrator, but also as a wrestler mentality and as a coach. I want to wrap this up. I'd love to talk to you forever.
We do anyhow.
Yeah, we did indeed. Well said. Well said. But you know, we like to leave with a couple of different, or one or two ideas, or heartfelt thought processes with our audience as a Blood Time message. What can we get from Tom Evans?
Just that you know, I am who I am today,
Sure.
in large part because of those people and what took place in that wrestling. The life skills that I learned from wrestling.
The wrestling room.
The deal with adversity. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, and we place so much of an emphasis on winning, but yet I love to read. I probably learned more lessons from the losses, the tough losses, than anything else, to look back and say, you know, what made me get better with that, mentally, physically, emotionally, because all those things together play. And you and I have both known wrestlers that were phenomenal physical specimens that mentally couldn't keep it together, or emotionally couldn't keep it together. But we've also known and we talked about tonight, the kids that were so mentally tough that may not have been great physical, but boy, you just hated to go out on the mat with them because you knew for 6 minutes they were just going to give you everything. They're going to be chewing on your ankle until you walked off the mat. It didn't matter. I
remember how many times I've looked in the state finals and there's a guy there and like, how did we get here? Well, because that boy would not be denied. He would not be denied.
And I think those are life skills.
Sure,
those are life skills. And we've all seen the bumper sticker, wrestling is life, but in a lot of ways that it is for me.
Yes,
it certainly is for me. Just on a personal, professional, all that level. So
so wrestling is life, and we had Jake Goodwin in, and he said wrestling saved his life.
Yeah,
you know, and so wrestling is life. Wrestling saves some lives, and hopefully we can save a lot of lives with smart decisions moving forward in this crisis that we're coming out of.
Right.
And with voices and intellect and hearts like Tom Evans, we're gonna win this.
I think I like to see us all pulling in the same direction, because when the wrestling community is all moving in the same direction, we're unstoppable.
We're unstoppable. Well, Tom, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Pete.
Love your brain, love your heart, love your spirit. Good luck to the Skins until they wrestle against the Tigers.
There we go.
I'm a big fan of you guys until you're wrestling against the Tigers, and maybe Beechwood, but no, the Tigers.
Right.
And good luck. Hopefully everything gets back to reasonably some semblance of what we considered normal.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Pete.
Yes, absolutely. Tom Evans, superintendent from the Cuyahoga Heights School Systems. We are all blood. Love to all. Coach Cimoroni. I want to share with you my thought of the day. Use your intellect first, and then bring your passion. I want to thank ServPro of Beechwood, our newest sponsor, and Jack Coslin, the owner. They serve all of Northeast Ohio, not just Beechwood. They specialize in disaster cleanup that leaves your home or office like new, like it never happened. Flood and water damage, fire, mold, and they say even blood and guts. Not just any ServPro. Seek out ServPro of Beechwood. That's ServPro Beechwood, Shaker Heights, ClevelandHeights.com, 216-464-4498. Operated by a former All-State wrestler from Beechwood. We love ServPro of Beechwood.